I'd like you to take 5 things away from this video. First and foremost, Chris Santacroce just released a concise summary on 4 very important things. It took me months of research to find 2 years ago, and now it's all out in one place. And that is wingovers, spirals, asymmetric frontals, and full frontal collapses. So it's all on YouTube. Give that stuff a look and watch those things. Make sure you understand it if you're progressing beyond just cruising around and looking at cows and trees. Well, it is always a privilege to be invited to fly at somebody's personal space. This morning I'm the guest of Mr. Goyne. We have decided going out for a little walk in the park, Kazansky. Jeff is sending it like he's been doing it for a few weeks. Clear prop in like manner. I'm going to give it a shot. So what kind of an activity is it where you can be an absolute idiot and come out here and within a few years fly with the top guy in the sport? I mean, it's like playing basketball with Michael Jordan. There's Jeff Foot dragging the cow path and turning out around the trees. Decides he wants some. Throwing a few passes with Joe Montana. So the biggest thing when you're a guest, in my opinion, is respect the wishes of the property owner and the host. If he wants you to fly high, not chase cows, it's not unreasonable. You're playing around the golf with Arnie Palmer. So the remaining 4 things I want to talk about are concepts that I've come up with, big airplane performance concepts that have some application to paramotoring. We'll talk about them conceptually. I don't ever intend for anybody to think that they need to come up with a number before they go flying a paraglider, because there's just too many variables. You know, Mr. Ripa whipped out a bunch of reasons that you can't calculate performance.
Because there's a lot of variables.
It's tough.
You've got wind, you've got humidity, density, altitude.
But he was missing the point. Those are all, initially, the things that he stated. Those are all the things that you can count on. You can determine density, altitude. You can determine wind, velocity. One is accelerate, go distance. Your paraglider came with a manual. But when you compare it to the manuals for other types of aircraft, noticeably absent is any mention of performance. So it's no great surprise that there might not be a ton of understanding of the factors that affect performance from within the paragliding community. So just for grins, let's take a look at one of the simplest charts in aviation, a single engine takeoff distance chart. You'll notice that there are 2 answers for each condition, a pavement used distance and a distance required to clear an obstacle of known height. You may also notice that both an increase in actual or density altitude increases the required distance, as well as a significant increase in temperature. An increase in density altitude is going to cause you to need more distance for your ground run. an increase in temperature is going to cause you to need more distance for your ground run. You should get familiar with how your paraglider and your paramotor motor system gets you airborne when it's 60 degrees, when it's 30 degrees, when it's 100 degrees. And if you have the opportunity, you should try it at sea level and at 1,000 feet and at 2,000 feet, and you'll notice progressively longer increased takeoff rolls until you get airborne. The second one is accelerate stop, which usually doesn't get even considered in single engine airplanes. Well, accelerate stop distance is a transport category airplane concept. And what it basically means is that you want to accelerate to the point of where your decision is being made. If everything's working good, we're going flying. And right at that critical moment, something bad happens, and you decide to abort the takeoff. Now you're going to need to stop because you're right at flying speed, which coincidentally is almost right at landing speed for that configuration you're using for takeoff. And it's going to take you some time to get stopped. Now, here's the neat thing about stopping distances. If you take a look at this chart, as we progress up in both temperature and density altitude, the ground roll portion of the chart data does not increase significantly. The total to clear the 50-foot obstacle portion does, because that involves the atmospheric conditions and actually flying. Once we're on the ground, full brakes or maximum available brakes, it really doesn't matter as much as it does on the takeoff charts if you're at sea level and it's cold, or if you're up high and it's hot. It increases a little bit based on those factors, but the factors have far more to do with braking coefficient of friction than it does anything to do with airborne performance. So the density altitude doesn't really factor in since we're using the brakes. We're not flying. The temperature might factor into a longer roll on airplanes because the colder the brakes are, oftentimes they work more efficiently. But we're talking about our hiking boots or our tennis shoes on slippery wet grass or perhaps a gravel road. And that's the only friction fall down that we might see. But just consider this. If you were to run as fast as you possibly can with your paramotor pushing you, and you let off the gas and you say, I want to stop, how much ground are you going to cover before you get stopped? And I think that you need to consider these things if you're taking off towards an obstacle, a fence, a ditch, a cow pasture, parked cars, and you decide right at the point where you'd normally be pulling brakes and going flying, you look up, uh-oh, I got a cravat. I don't want to deal with it when I'm airborne. I want to stop. You let off the gas, you come screeching to a halt. Are you going to be able to stop from however long it took you to get to that flying speed point? Are you going to be able to stop before you get to that obstacle that may cause you an injury? I'm sure if you're out there flying and you've reached a certain level of proficiency, you've probably already had this happen. So keep it in mind when you're picking your takeoff sites. And then climb gradient. Initially, I thought that any discussion about climb gradient was beyond the scope of flying paramotors. It's not really even something that's covered very often in private pilot course curriculum. It's more of an instrument course curriculum item. And the reason is that in low visibility, pilots need to be assured that the route that they're flying will clear them of terrain and obstacles. So why discuss it with paramotors? Because it's really easy to distill out the one single thing that makes the difference in climb gradient. So first, let's define a couple real simple terms. Rate of climb is how many feet per minute you're climbing. Climb gradient is how many feet you're climbing per distance traveled. So you could have a climb gradient of 200 feet per nautical mile, or 200 feet per 200 feet traveled forward, which would be a 45-degree angle. What's the one key thing that makes the difference? Ground speed. So if your ground speed is high, you're not going to have a very good climb gradient, or at least you're not going to have as good of a climb gradient as if your ground speed is low. So here's the point. With a headwind, you'll be able to climb at a much steeper angle than with a tailwind. That's what I want you to consider
when you consider climb gradient, especially maneuvering in proximity to obstacles and things like trees.
And lastly is its very closely related cousin, approach climb limit. So that's if you're going into a field that's tight and at some point in the approach you decide it isn't going to work out, you got to have the performance to climb back out of that area.
Well, more so than any other concept, this approach climb limit concept kind of smushes a few of these other performance considerations together in one big bad, hey, we got to get over this obstacle, a line of trees, down to the pool party, at our neighbor's pool party, and we got to get stopped before we hit the fence. And oh, by the way, if it doesn't work out, we got to have the performance to climb back out and miss the fence and come back around and try again. I'm sure you can come up with your own scenario. So do it on paper rather than for real the first couple times, where it might end up on the news.
Fly safe, and man, Wauchula is a beautiful place if you get down this far. Lots of wide open spaces, not a lot of traffic.